Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The Jordanian government has agreed to release a female prisoner in exchange for the freeing of an Air Force pilot captured by militants in Syria a month ago. The Islamic State had threatened to kill the pilot and a kidnapped Japanese journalist if the prisoner, Sajida al-Rishawi, was not released. She'd been facing a death sentence for her role in a 2005 attack on 3 hotels in Amman that killed more than 57 people. In other news from the region, tensions growing along Israel's borders with both Lebanon and Syria. Israel's fired dozens of shells into Lebanon after 4 Israeli soldiers were injured when an anti-tank missile hit an Israeli military vehicle near the Lebanon border. Hezbollah claimed responsibility for what's been described as the biggest attack on Israeli forces by Hezbollah since 2006. Last week, an Israeli airstrike killed 6 Hezbollah soldiers and an Iranian general inside Syria. Israel also launched an airstrike in Syria today. On Tuesday, at least 2 rockets from Syria hit the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. The United States has agreed to give the Ukrainian government $2 billion in loan guarantees as fighting increases between Ukrainian forces and Russian-backed rebels. 3 more Ukrainian soldiers reportedly died over the past 24 hours. On Tuesday, Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko warned about the growing threat of a continental war.
I will not mention clear and obvious parallels between the events in Europe in the 1930s and present developments. The threat of continental war is now great as never before. There should be no doubt that the ambitions and appetite of the aggressor go far beyond Ukraine.
In Greece, the country's new Prime Minister, Alexis Tsipras, has promised radical change as his government begins to roll back key parts of Greece's international bailout. The government's put off the planned sale of the country's biggest power utility while pledging to raise pensions for those on low incomes and reinstate some fired public sector workers. On Tuesday, the new Greek government was sworn in. George Katrougalos is the new Deputy Minister of Public Administration.
It is the reforms, but it's the reforms that the country needs, not the reforms that are dictated from outside its borders. We must restart the economy. We must revigorate democracy. It is a big challenge, but I think we are fit to it.
President Obama has wrapped up a short visit to Saudi Arabia to meet the new King Salman and pay his respects following the death of King Abdullah. In an interview on CNN, President Obama defended the United States' close partnership with Saudi Arabia despite the kingdom's poor human rights record.
Sometimes we have to balance our need to speak to them about human rights issues with immediate concerns that we have in terms of countering terrorism or dealing with regional stability.
The Mexican government is now saying the 43 Mexican students who disappeared 4 months ago were murdered on the orders of a drug cartel that mistook them for members of a rival gang. Attorney General Jesus Murillo said the gang members suspected of killing the students had been so thorough in the destruction of their remains that it was difficult to identify them. The remains of only one of the missing students has been identified so far. On Monday, Mexican Attorney General Murillo discussed the case with reporters.
Closing the investigation is perhaps not the most adequate word. While we don't have all the suspects, I can't close it. It's not the right word. You asked me if the elements that we have are sufficient enough to determine what is there, that they killed them, burnt them. I would say yes, much more than in any other case.
Mexico's account contradicts published reports that directly tie governmental officials to the disappearances of the students. According to the Mexican magazine Proceso, federal police played a role in the attack, and federal authorities likely tortured key witnesses. On Capitol Hill, the confirmation hearing of Attorney General nominee Loretta Lynch begins today to replace outgoing Attorney General Eric Holder. Lynch is currently the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York. The state of Georgia executed an intellectually disabled prisoner last night, ending a 4-year legal battle. Warren Hill was determined to be mentally retarded by several doctors, but Georgia officials disputed their finding. In 2002, the Supreme Court banned executing mentally retarded people, but gave states some discretion in deciding who qualified for protection. More information's come to light about the small drone that crashed on the grounds of the White House Monday. The recreational drone was operated by an employee of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. According to the agency, the employee was off-duty and not involved in work related to drones or unmanned aerial vehicles in any capacity. In Florida, domestic abuse survivor Marissa Alexander has returned home after 3 years in prison. She was jailed after firing a warning shot into a wall near her abusive husband. Alexander, who's African-American, was originally sentenced to 20 years in prison. Alexander's attorneys unsuccessfully tried to use Florida's Stand Your Ground law in her defense, saying she feared for her life when she fired the shot. After an appeals court ordered a new trial over faulty jury instructions, a deal was reached for her early release. The Justice Department has agreed to pay $25,000 to a college student who was detained at an airport for 5 hours in 2009 for having Arabic language flashcards in his pocket. The student, Nicholas George, was studying Arabic and had visited several countries in the Middle East through a summer study program. His flashcards included the words bomb and to kill. One Transportation Security Administration supervisor interrogating him asked about the September 11th attacks and noted that Osama bin Laden also spoke Arabic. Parts of New York and Massachusetts are digging out after a massive snowstorm. Massachusetts' second largest city, Worcester, received a record-breaking 33 inches of snow. The entire island of Nantucket lost power during the storm. And the top U.S. trade official has told lawmakers the 12-nation Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal could be wrapped up within months and urged Congress to give the White House fast-track authority to approve the deal. Protesters with the group Flush the Trans-Pacific Partnership repeatedly interrupted U.S. Trade Representative Michael Froman's testimony before Congress.
USTR, we're advancing those goals by knocking down barriers to U.S. exports and leveling the playing field for American workers and businesses of all sizes. As we work to open markets around the world,
we're not telling the American people the truth. We know that the Trans-Pacific Partnership has been negotiated and secret for 5 years. You're trying to rush it through Congress with fast track because it's secret. You know the things in there are going to hurt the American people. They're going to offshore our jobs and lower our wages. They're going to
Let's have order. All right, remove this person from the room. If anybody else does this, we're going to be removed.
You're not going to allow us to protect our workers from poor working conditions. You are not going to get fast track. The American people are against it. They're against the TPP. No secret trade deal.
We're saying stop fast track.
No TPP.
No. We don't want supersized NAFTA. We don't want losing our jobs. We don't want them trying to part with this fast track to Congress. We believe in democracy, not secrecy.
No
transparency. We want transparency.
No TPP. No TPP.
Protesters interrupting U.S. Trade Representative Michael Froman at a hearing about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The protesters, Dr. Margaret Flowers, Kevin Zeese, and retired steelworker Richard Ox, were all arrested after being removed from the hearing. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We're broadcasting from the Sundance Film Festival in Park City, Utah.